Okay, so in this video I wanted to go through the carbon cycle with you. So just firstly, I suppose, just a little revision on carbon. So carbon is an element. How do you know it's an element? Well, it's found on the periodic table. The symbol for carbon is C. Carbon dioxide then, on the other hand, is a compound. The formula for carbon dioxide is CO2. Now, you know about carbon dioxide. We made carbon dioxide, remember, in the lab before Christmas. And then how would you test for the presence of carbon dioxide? Well, it turns lime water milky, or it extinguishes a lighting candle. Okay? Now, there are two videos there now that you should watch. The first one is the carbon cycle song, and then the second one is a short video on the carbon cycle as well. So why do we need carbon? So we need carbon because it is an essential element in the molecules of life, if you like. So like biomolecules, bio implies life. So molecules are groups of atoms. So carbon is an element or an atom that is found in those molecules. So to make cells, you need carbon. And the earth only has a certain amount of carbon, so it's important that we recycle it to maintain supply. So you talk about sustainability. Carbon is found in the atmosphere as carbon dioxide. Okay, now carbon stores. So there are many places, I suppose, where carbon is stored. So the first place is the atmosphere, mainly as carbon dioxide, but also as methane, which is CH4. Living organisms store carbon. So like I said, remember the biomolecules of life, so carbohydrate, proteins, fats, they all have carbon in them. So when you're making plant cells, or if making animal cells, you need those biomolecules. You need carbohydrate, you need protein, you need fats, and then that carbon in those biomolecules becomes incorporated into the organism. When that organism dies, then they decompose. So you've often heard of compost heaps and rotting organisms, rotting bodies. So they decompose to form dead organic matter. Fossil fuels then, so sometimes dead plants and animals over millions of years would form fossil fuels. Okay, so coal was formed from dead plant material that was on land. Crude oil and gas were formed from dead sea organisms. Okay, the earth, or the rocks on the earth, also contain carbon. So like limestone is calcium carbonate, so there's lots of carbon in limestone rock, and the oceans contain carbon dioxide as well. Okay, now when we're trying to learn the carbon cycle, now I'm going to actually do a separate video in a second on the carbon cycle that I want you to learn and to put into your notes. So, but this is just sort of an overview firstly with the PowerPoint. So we need to think about processes that add carbon to the air, carbon dioxide to the air, and remove carbon dioxide from the air. Now, the reason we're doing the carbon cycle is we've just studied respiration and we've just studied photosynthesis, so you should be very clear about those. So if I asked you for a process that takes carbon dioxide away from the air, you should be thinking photosynthesis. So you can see in the picture there on the right hand side, you can see how the photosynthesis, the green plant, takes carbon dioxide from the air. Now, what about processes that return carbon dioxide to the air? Well, respiration, plants and animals. Now, remember we spoke a minute ago about decomposing bacteria, that are decomposing organisms. So if something dies, dead plants, dead animals get decomposed, broken down by bacteria or fungi that are in the soil. So they also respire, bacteria, and those microorganisms will respire as well, returning carbon dioxide to the air. Burning fossil fuels, of course, you've all heard in the news about the amount of fossil fuels that we're burning, leading to the amount of carbon dioxide increasing in the air. So that so burning fossil fuels, or combustion is another word for burning, also returns carbon dioxide to the air. Okay, so there on the left hand side of the text, you can see that carbon enters the atmosphere as carbon dioxide from respiration or combustion. So there are processes that return carbon dioxide to the air. Carbon dioxide is absorbed by plants, so taken from the air by plants in photosynthesis. Okay, animals feed on plants, passing the carbon compounds along the food chain. So when an animal eats a plant, the carbon that was a part of that plant, the plant cells, then becomes incorporated, if you like, into the animal. So the animal has that as food. Now, most of that carbon then they'll exhale as carbon dioxide during respiration, but some of the carbon will become incorporated into the animal's body. As the animal becomes bigger and produces new animal cells, then it'll need some of the carbon that it got from the plants. The animals and plants eventually die, and then decomposers break down dead organic matter or dead organisms and return the carbon to the body in their bodies to the atmosphere as carbon dioxide, because like I said, the bacteria will also respire. As the dead organic matter is decomposed, carbon is also released from that dead body and is kept in the soil. And then in some conditions where decomposition is blocked, and often that will be where there's very little oxygen, the plant and the animal become fossil fuels. Okay, so there's a diagram there of the carbon cycle. So you can see there that the green plant is absorbing carbon dioxide from the air. What's returning carbon dioxide to the air, mainly respiration and combustion, are the ones you need to remember, the process there that you need to remember. So green plants take carbon dioxide from the air. Animals release carbon dioxide back to the air. Okay, do you see when the organism dies? See the dead bird there after dying? They'll decompose. The decomposing microorganisms will release carbon dioxide during respiration, but also the carbon element itself remains in the soil when the organism dies. Animals eat the plants, so the carbon is transferred from the plant to the animal, and then burning fossil fuels releases carbon dioxide back into the atmosphere. Now, a carbon sink is a place where you store carbon, or a carbon reservoir. Carbon sinks would be things like a forest full of trees. I can see I've misspelled carbon there. Will you fix that when you're writing the notes in your notebook, please? Carbon sources, places where carbons are given off or released in great quantities. So like a natural carbon sources would be a volcano, something like that. Too much carbon dioxide, what's the problem? Well, global warming. Okay, you're all familiar with that. And then causes of global warming would be burning fossil fuels, because you're releasing large amounts of carbon dioxide into the air, or deforestation. So if you're cutting down trees, then those trees aren't able to absorb the carbon dioxide from the air as they were before. Okay, so you'll have increasing levels of carbon dioxide with that. Increasing levels of carbon dioxide, or the problem with global warming, is that the temperature of the earth is getting hotter, so the ice is melting, resulting in increase in sea levels, which may cause flooding, or climate change, where you have more severe climate, so like storms are becoming more violent, more frequent. The Irish government, what are they doing? Well, grants for people to use solar panels and insulate their house better. So if your house is insulated better, then you're not going to lose as much, you're not going to waste as much energy. I suppose you'll keep the heat in your house. Cycle to work schemes, improving public transport so that we're not all driving individual cars, putting carbon tax on fuels, or encouraging people to reduce, reuse, recycle, and then improving conditions for electric cars. That's a link there that'll help you to calculate your carbon footprint.